Every week, college football games hinge on a single word.
Touchdown. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Touchdown. Touchdown. Touchdown, Wisconsin. Touchdown. 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 Touchdown, Stanford. Touchdown. Touchdown, Alabama. Touchdown, Notre Dame. Touchdown. Wow.
This is Touchdown Radio. Here's Gino Torretta and Taylor Zarzour.
We are back for another season in 2025. I believe this is the 12th straight year I have had some sort of show on Channel 84. Shout out to my man Greg McElroy. We did take first in at least a flight winner in a golf tournament over the summer. It's been many years since Greg and I were doing a show together here. RIP to the first team. But Gino and I have been doing a show together now. I believe this is the 8th straight year we've had the Tailgate Show. Gino, you've been doing a show, I think, for 75 straight years on Channel 84.
I just turned 55.
What was the first year you and Jackaroot were doing a show on Channel 84?
Actually, it was, before that, Fishman called me. I was doing like an ACC show, and I was like, why am I doing an ACC hit? I was an independent and in the Big East, but that was way back when I was up in your neck of the woods. So it's been a while, and then Jack and I did a show which was great. I think after when Leach went back to coaching, and then you and I have done games and shows, and it's
here we
awesome.
go.
We have some video footage, some good pictures of our history.
Yeah, we do. Yes, the way we've been able to do these shows together is unbelievable, and the way we're doing them in 2025 is pretty unbelievable. ACC legend Gino Torretta, yes, joining us here on the program. And look, that's one of the stories we've been following in recent years is getting used to these teams playing in new conferences, the NIL, the transfer portal, the 12-team college playoff, when it will expand to more than 12 teams. So there's all this talk off of the field and just about the way that we're consuming college football. Do you care about any of that stuff, Gino, or do we get straight to the teams and who's going to play for a national championship and evaluating these teams? Or is there, it seems like this time every year we have something else that we have to discuss. It's a big story in college football.
Well, I think what it does is it gives you and I that, might get compensated to talk about things that we know about, something to talk about when there are no games. I mean, I think the best part about this time is we don't care about any of that other stuff. We don't care about, of whose roster is making what and who transfer where. It's about, okay, now they're wherever they are at a school, and how are they come together, and are they going to come together at the right time? Are they going to not have injuries? Are they going to get through the playoffs and have a healthy team to make it to the national championship game and win the game? So I think that it seems like there's a lot of all the talk and chatter, like talking season, as Coach Spurrier used to say. But to me right now, you know what? It's about the same thing about everything. Who's gonna have a special teams blunder in week one? We know it always happens in college football. Somebody's gonna let their guard down, and it's gonna probably cost them a game. Who's gonna be the biggest name that emerges as the new quarterback at Notre Dame? Is Carson Beck gonna come back 100% after elbow surgery in Georgia and do what Cam Moore did at Miami last year? So the best part is we don't have to hear about any of the off-field stuff anymore. It's all about what happens in 60 minutes on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of days there. By the way, I was in an elevator with some Tennessee Titans players, Cam Ward, one of them, and he was screaming at the other players in the elevator about why Carson Beck is going to win the Heisman Trophy this year. So the chatter has already started everywhere. No matter
I would say this: if Carson Beck has a year and he is up for the Heisman and wins the Heisman, he should give part of it to Cam Ward, because Cam put the Miami quarterback position back in that category with the season he had last year.
Unbelievable year for him, and everybody in Nashville, Tennessee is excited for Cam. Now, we need to talk week 0 before we get to week 1, and we need to give a shout out to the game that we did last year as Gino Torretta's golf clubs might be somewhere in Northern Ireland right now. Iowa State beats K-State 24-21 in Dublin. Shout out to my guy, SiriusXM PGA Tour radio contributor Ramey Burns, who did go to the game, who lives there in Dublin, who did take us to Port Marnock last year to play some golf. He did say it was a rather bizarre feeling to be in the pubs singing one of Ireland's favorite songs, Fields of Athenry, with a bunch of Iowa State Cyclones fans. That was a weird feeling. Middle America took over in Ireland last week, but I love that game, Gino. I love that they've created that thing. I'm not big on all these neutral site games, but I think that's pretty cool for week 0.
Yeah, there's no question. And you know what? A game that really matters. You know what I mean? Within their conference. And for teams that, listen, you get down at the end of it, and what have we learned? If you have one stumble, you're not going to get into that playoff at the end of the year. That's huge that we have that opportunity to have that game over in Ireland. And yeah, props to Rocco Becht and Coach Campbell and the Iowa State Clones.
Yeah, for getting that win in week 1, a Big 12 conference victory at that. Hawaii knocked off Stanford at the gun over in the islands. Kansas beat Fresno State. Dan Mullen and UNLV got a win. Dan Mullen, of course, is coaching UNLV now, so there's been some changes in the offseason that we will be tackling throughout the year. There are games today. You got Rutgers playing Ohio, Minnesota's playing Buffalo, Wisconsin's playing Miami of Ohio, Nebraska is at Cincinnati, NC State versus East Carolina, a great rivalry game in the great state of North Carolina, Thursday night start. Duke and Elon kicking off, UCF playing Jack State, Oklahoma State and Coach Gundy of UT Martin. Houston's playing Stephen F. Austin, so you got all that. Missouri, and the Tigers, after having a couple of great years, play Central Arkansas, so they certainly should start with a win. These are just Thursday games I'm talking about. And Boise State's at South Florida. That's already underway. A lot of Thursday games. Gino, I hadn't even gotten to Friday, and then, of course, Saturday we have a massive tilt.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it seems like we go from nothing, and we're upset that there's no football, and then it's just a fire hose on week 1. I would agree with you on the some of the old kickoff classic type games that we used to have, but to have the Ohio State and Texas tilt obviously is massive, and then Miami Notre Dame. On Monday is it's a college football. I would say this week 1 looks like the best week 1 in a long time to me is what we're doing this weekend.
Yeah, we're going to get into those matchups coming up in the next segment. Week 1 is just fantastic, especially Saturday. You mentioned the Sunday night game with Miami Notre Dame, South Carolina Virginia Tech also playing on Sunday. So we have a lot of great games on Saturday and Sunday that we will tackle coming up in the next segment. And you said it. I mean, these games really matter. I mean, if you're battling the Big 12, I think most people going into the year have this idea that it could be a one-bid league. I mean, we'll see if that's actually what turns out to happen. But when we are trying to determine who should be in the 12-team playoff or who's going to win the Big 12 at the end of the season, we're going to look back at a game that happened in the middle of August in Ireland to help determine that. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, there's no question. That's why you can't, why it's the best regular season of any sport. You can't stub your toe. You very seldom, if ever, unless you're one of the bluest of blue bloods, one of the top ranked teams, that you can't stub your toe unless it's maybe against another top 5 team and have an opportunity at the end. And that's why I think that first week for Iowa State in week 0 over in Ireland is going to be huge, and we don't know what's going to be huge. I mean, there's going to be a team that we're not going to talk about today or probably in the first 4 weeks of the season that is going to make it to the playoffs, and we're going to be like, wow. I just the one discussion that, as they're talking about expansion, which, listen, you have argued against it. I have always said, let's open it up. Let's let it be 16 teams, and we figure out a way. To me, the conference title games, I think it showed a season ago that, we don't need these conference title games. Why don't we expand the playoffs and have actual playoff games that aren't this, de facto, really kind of a seeding issue? Because, they took the top two ACC teams when they were in the game, and, Miami's like, well, we didn't make the game, but we feel we're better than, SMU. I don't want that. I would rather have the playoff, and I don't think that, we should go into every season and say, what, the SEC is going to have 6 of the top 12 teams in a 16-team playoff. Why don't we just play the season and let the rankings say this is who had the best season? And if the SEC puts, hell, I don't care, 9 of their teams in the playoffs, let 9 of them go. But play the games.
Yeah.
And literally rank them. Just say, you know what? If our 4th best team is 7-5, I mean, let's be honest, they can't have an argument. But it comes down to money and how much it goes back to the conference. So we have to kind of figure out a way where the conferences are the same. The Big 12 is a solid conference, and to say, well, they should only get one team, or the ACC should only get one team. Maybe certain years that's true, but you can't just make a rule like that and it's going to be good forever.
Well,
Florida State got screwed,
Yeah, look, I think that here's the deal. I get where you're coming from, but you're giving me an idealistic idea of what should happen with college football. I'm trying to operate in reality, my friend. That's why you keep wanting to expand the playoff and get rid of these conference championship games, and these conference commissioners are thinking about money. They're thinking about being capitalists. That's what they're thinking about. And,
I agree. Okay.
Most business people listening to us right now do the same thing with whatever they do for a living.
But here's my thought is, okay, you have a playoff game in Atlanta for the SEC. What if that is an actual playoff game, not for the conference?
You don't have to sell me on the idea. It's a great idea. I'm telling you why it's not going to happen.
I thought I had to sell you on the idea.
No. I'm on board with it. I have been on board with it. You say I don't want an expanded playoff, and I never did. I was always on board with getting rid of the conference championship games and using that as a playoff weekend to start the playoffs. I've always been on board with that. I don't think we're going to get there. I think that they see that as a massive opportunity to cash in for these conferences, and it gives their teams an advantage in recruiting and how big their budgets are. And I just think it's going to be really hard for them to come off of that. I do think that there's some interesting ideas that are being floated around about maybe not sending your best teams to those games. I'd be totally against that. But I get where they're coming from. They're trying to find a way to capitalize off of making money. It's the same thing with the college basketball conference tournaments that are completely meaningless before the NCAA tournament starts. It's a cash cow for these conferences. They generate all this revenue, and I just think that it's going to be very difficult to come off of it. But selling me on the idea, you don't have to do that, my friend. I'm in for that.
All right. I you know what I mean, and I would think that at some point it's going to take the SEC and the Big Ten, who are the two brightest shining stars right now, to, as they say, probably take one for the team. And
good luck,
whatever this is going to look like.
Yeah, look, if they control all of college football, as some people are suggesting we're headed towards, then that's a different story. But until that day comes, I think this is kind of the best it's going to be. So I have a lot of questions for you about what we're doing right now in college football. There's a lot of you that listen that talk about this each day, and get frustrated about the situation college football is in. I think once we get to these games on Saturday, I don't think anybody cares about that stuff. I think that they still love college football as much, if not more, than they ever loved it before. Even if a guy played for 3 or 4 teams, as is the case in Kentucky Toledo on SEC Network at 12:45 on Saturday, shameless plug. Even you would Chip Trainum, the running back for Toledo, who's played for 4 teams. I don't think that they think about that once he gets the football. I think they think about their team having a chance to win, and so that's what we'll concentrate on mostly here this week, especially since the matchups are so strong. And we're going to do that next as we talk about the great Week 1 Saturday tilt on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Gino Torretta, Taylor Zarzour with you here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Gino, this tilt that we have in Week 1 is just awesome. It's what everybody loves about college football. I'm going to try to run through it. Now, on Friday, you have Auburn at Baylor. It's a big matchup. People are talking about Hugh Freeze and whether he's already on the hot seat or not. Certainly losing to Baylor wouldn't help things out. That's Friday night. Then just at noon, you have number 1 Texas at number 3 Ohio State. The Texas Longhorns are the number 1 team in college football, at least in the Associated Press rankings, and they're an underdog on the road to start the season at the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. Tennessee Volunteers are ranked 24th in the country. They play Syracuse in Atlanta. That's also a noon kick. Those are just a couple of the 12 o'clock starts on Saturday. A couple others to tell you about that start a little bit later on in the day of interest. Number 8 Alabama is at Florida State at 3:30 on ABC. Crimson Tide in Tallahassee. Now, I love that. On campus. Texas at Ohio State. On campus. Alabama at Florida State. And then at night, number 4 Clemson and their version of Death Valley host number 9 LSU, not in their version of Death Valley. 7:30 on ABC. This is fantastic. And then at 11 o'clock, if you haven't had enough, Utah plays at UCLA to finish the night. That's just Saturday, Gino. I haven't even gotten to Sunday yet. I mean, this is a heck of a start right there.
No, it is. Like I said, I think this week 0 / week 1 of college football in 25 is the best. I think they, like we talked about, the iteration of moving these kickoff classic games back on the home field, and we get that in outstanding environment in Columbus, and the Baylor game is just, I think that's going to be tremendous. I mean, if you do the search and sort scheduling based on the top 25, the Baylor Auburn game doesn't even show up, and it's like, wait a sec, why isn't that game here? But that just kind of goes on teams that had a disappointing last year, but have some high aspirations this year.
So if you had to pick one, Texas at Ohio State, LSU at Clemson, I mean, both of those are incredible. I mean, they're both top 10 matchups. Texas, Ohio State's a top 3 matchup. I have to be honest, I have no earthly idea who's going to win either one of those games.
No, if I had to, it's like you lean on the home field, but the amount of players that Ohio State lost, and listen, whether it was, Miami after the 01-02, season or LSU, at a certain point in time, when you lose that many great players, you're going to have a drop-off. And isn't that the question kind of every year with Alabama when they had Saban? Is this the year they finally had the drop-off? And, they had kind of a drop-off this year. Are they going to be able to bounce back with Kalen and his old OC back together and that? So I think that, there are so many great storylines for these teams, but huge question marks. And listen, I know Texas is preseason 1. Texas still has a quarterback that is rather inexperienced.
Yeah.
I mean, Arch Manning, for all the talent in the world, it's still, okay, is it going to materialize? over, 14-game season or whatever it is now. I mean, it used to be 12-game season. Now I think they play 15 or 16 to win a championship. So that's why it's just so awesome. And now we're, finally getting back to it and talking ball.
Listen, I think there's some parallels to you and to Arch Manning. You were a redshirt junior before you were the full-time starting quarterback. You had a lot of starts under your belt. You'd come off the bench when Craig Erickson was injured. You played a lot those first couple of years, your redshirt freshman, your redshirt sophomore season. And Arch Manning has played quite a bit, especially last year when Quinn Ewers was injured. But what was it like when you were finally the man, like Arch is going to experience?
Well, it's just he's had a spring of preparing. I mean, probably more hype than any player. I'd probably argue in the history of college football. I mean, really, let's be honest, because we've heard about Arch Manning and listen, I don't like to go down on field and watch quarterbacks, but I made sure TCU game a few years ago at the end of the year when Texas was on the road. I'm like, damn, he's a big kid. He's an athlete. He can sling it. And we've had those expectations that of what he's going to turn into as a player. We saw glimpses of it, like you said, when Ewers got hurt last year, and he's played a bunch. But it's his team now, and I think that it's going to come down to, no matter how good any of us are as a quarterback, it's still going to be heavily influenced by how good the other 10 guys are around him on the offensive side of the ball, and how good his defense is. Let's be honest. I mean, they got a tough schedule. They got they go on the road for some big matchups, and wasn't a couple of years ago they were in the Big 12, and everybody said nobody in the Big 12 had a defense, and now all of a sudden Texas is considered the top dog. Did we forget now they're in the SEC and they got to go between the edges? They got to go to Alabama, and they got to play all these teams where all we talk about, it seems like kind of the preseason every year is, okay, who's going to cannibalize who in the SEC because of the depth of the conference. I mean, you'd like to think Ole Miss is going to be able to reload. I mean, their schedule is just absolutely brutal. Like, and like it or not, somebody's got to lose every game that's played, and you hope you're on the better end of all of them, and the majority of them. But I think for Arch, it's going to be he's I mean, heck, he's been dealing with this between his dad and his uncles and things like that. I think he's probably better prepared than any college football starter has ever been, based on his preparation and just his lineage.
We talked about Auburn and Baylor, and Coach Freeze going into this season needs to have some big victories. We'll see what happens there on Friday night. Make no mistake, Kalen DeBoer does not deserve to be on the hot seat. He went 9-4 in his first year at Alabama. A lot of transition after Nick Saban retired and DeBoer came in. I'm not calling for Kalen DeBoer's job. I'm just going to be honest with you. If number 8 Alabama loses in Tallahassee on Saturday, it's going to get really loud. It shouldn't be, and it doesn't make any sense because it's year 2. But if I'm Kalen DeBoer, I would not recommend Kalen DeBoer losing that game. Otherwise, it's going to get extremely loud. People can talk about Auburn all they want, but Alabama will get the headlines if Florida State wins that game for all the scrutiny of the coaches. Then on Sunday, you have number 13 South Carolina playing Virginia Tech in Atlanta in the Beamer Bowl. I know that'll be very special for Shane and for his dad, Frank, and how much those two programs mean to the entire Beamer family. That will be fun. And then, of course, on Sunday night, down in Miami of Florida, Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes are hosting the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, number 6 Notre Dame at number 10 Miami. 3 top 10 matchups, Gino. 6 of the top 10 teams in the Associated Press poll are playing each other in week 1.
Yeah, it's awesome, and obviously Sunday night, I'll be there, with Touchdown Radio having the broadcast and the call of that one. Notre Dame's loaded. They only lost. People. They're 6th, and I think mainly on, Riley graduating at quarterback. I mean, you only lose 6 draft picks, and you were the runner-up in the national championship game. I would like my chances going into the following season, and to come down and travel to Miami. Obviously, there is a long history between the two schools, going back to '88 and Catholics versus convict, and the last time Notre Dame came down here in 2017, it wasn't a good experience for them. They were favored by 3 or 4 and got absolutely destroyed, 41 to I think it was 7 or 17. Got smoked in Joe Robbie Stadium. So I think they're going to be a little bit better prepared for their trip down here this year. And Miami's got a lot of question marks. Can Carson Beck do what Cam Ward did? I mean, the leading receivers are all going to be transfers for Miami or freshmen. So, how are those kids going to step up? How's a new defensive coordinator at Miami? Oh, by the way, Notre Dame has a new defensive coordinator because Al Golden went back to the NFL. So, there's a lot of question marks, but just I would think the eyeballs on Miami, Notre Dame.
Oh, it's going to crush it. Yeah.
The average person has heard Catholics versus convicts. The average person is like, man, remember when they used to fight in the tunnel? You remember those games, and they were for national championships. And I think both of these teams have aspirations that they're going to be there at the end of the year. And you got to take care of business in week 1.
Yes, you do. And I love that you are calling it Joe Robbie Stadium. RIP to a Pro Player Stadium and Land Shark Stadium and whatever else it's been called, as it's now, I believe.
Yeah, the man that paid for the stadium, I will continue to call it, because that was what the
Hard Rock
was
Stadium,
when it was built.
Steve Ross Stadium on Sunday night there in Miami, and you can listen to it on Touchdown Radio right here on SiriusXM. Okay, when we return, we got to talk about some big picture situations with college football, where the sport is as a whole. And later on, we're going to make picks. I don't know why, because Gino never bought me a steak at the end of last season, so maybe he has to buy me 2 now.
You've got 8 jobs now. I haven't heard from you. You've gone off the radar. Apparently, when do I get a member guest invite to your club? I'll be your
Tighten
your
up,
guest
Gino.
pick.
Come to Nashville and come to a Titans game with me. We'll be back in just a moment here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Gino and Taylor with you here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate, and we're glad to be here for week 1 of the college football season. Gino, I think I speak for a lot of college football fans. I've kind of gotten turned off to all the transfer portal talk and NIL talk. It doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean I don't want to change it for the better. It doesn't mean I like seeing guys that are transferring 2, 3, and 4 times to different schools, and how much money is changing hands with all of these players. I do think they deserve compensation. I do think they should have the ability to transfer, but I think there should be some rules, some guardrails against this stuff, because, in my opinion, it's gotten out of control. What do you think?
Well, I would agree. I think that, the question mark is how and what do the guardrails look like? I think that what if those guardrails cost a player, I guess, money, they're going to lose in court, because every challenge to the current system has been beaten in the court. I think that I would agree that the compensation. I don't think anybody begrudges any of these players for making money or when they become a star to be paid. I think to be paid to transfer, and it's free agency with no free agency rules, I think people all kind of have an issue with, which I would agree with. I think now that it's a revenue share, now that the money is now coming from the university and not outside sources with collectives, I think is that amount of money is going to be more limited into true marketing deals to a marketable athlete. I think there will be some kind of calming down. I don't know if I think that or I hope that, you know what, if all the teams are similar to the NFL or Major League Baseball operating within a system of we can spend this amount of money, we have to spend this amount of money on our student athletes across the board, there's going to be some calming down of the transfer. I think that, you know, what I look back at my career, and you talked about it. When I started as a redshirt freshman, I started 4 games. I broke the school record for passing in my second start. There is probably no question that I would not have finished my career at the University of Miami under the current system. And would that have been good for me? I would argue, you know, history, hey, you know what? It sucked that I had to go back to the bench as a redshirt freshman. And, oh, by the way, the entire next season I had to sit on the bench before my last 2 years of my junior and senior season. But in the system, if somebody was going to entice me with millions and millions of dollars that would have changed my life financially, not changed my life what the Heisman and winning 2 national championships and all those awards have done, changed my life differently than you know, getting multi-million-dollar check to transfer schools. And I would guarantee there are situations in today's college environment where players are not sticking it out and saying, you know what, I really like this school, I like this university, I like playing here for these coaches. I think I'm going to turn out to be a better player if I just suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't see. There's not a, you know what, there's going to be bumps in the road. You know, the road to construction, the road to success is always under construction. And I think that with no guardrails, it's almost like, oh yeah, it's, you know, the Wizard of Oz, and all the roads are paved perfectly, and you're just going to walk to the NFL and be successful there too. So I would hope that we figure something out where the players and athletes in college get compensated. But yeah, the unlimited moving and when they move is definitely a turnoff.
It is, and I just don't think ultimately it's good for these players. I don't blame the player at all, and I really appreciate how you personalized it and put it in your own situation. And no one could have blamed you had you been presented that opportunity. You can't blame any of these kids for being presented that opportunity. It's incumbent upon the people that are in charge to put some guardrails around this so that they don't have any regrets later on, and so that it's a better situation for everyone, not just the consumer, but also for the player. I would just say this. There's a guy that is going to start at quarterback for Kentucky Saturday at 12:45 named Zach Calzada. He used to play for Texas A&M. You remember 4 years ago when Texas A&M beat Alabama in College Station? He was the quarterback for Texas A&M. Since then, he went to Auburn. Then he went to Incarnate Word. And now he is a 7th-year player playing for Kentucky. Zach Calzada, 30 years from now, when he's your age, when you say, hey, Zach, where'd you go to college? Well, it's a long story. I mean, like, it's just bizarre that they're allowing all of that to happen. Like, at some point you got to say, okay, you can transfer, but you can't transfer 3 or 4 times. At some point they've got to say, okay, you can make X, but it's only going to be X. It can't, and it's going to be through the school instead of all of this other stuff that's going on around it. And Gino, I think the only way that anything's going to change is if we get to a place where the SEC and the Big Ten come together and they form some top level of college football, and there is a commissioner that's running all of this and sets the guidelines for this. Until that happens, I think we're going to continue to see what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, I mean, with Calzada, add in the COVID year, which that's still a thing for players that were around then. And I don't know, it just seemed to me, it back in my day, and you and I remember these days, where the injury red shirt was, man, you had to have essentially a devastating injury.
Yeah.
To get a medical red shirt, and now it seems like, okay, you're missing some games. Yeah, you can have another year. It's like we're giving out those years. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke, the old Miami quarterback, old Wisconsin quarterback, is now at SMU, and I think has a couple more years left to play. So it is happening, and there are things that need to be corrected. It's kind of, I'm speechless from the standpoint that we haven't taken on that challenge, or the powers that be in the conference commissioner office to say, okay, how do we do this? How do we, not limit a player's ability to make money, but we have to have something to where we're not turning over our rosters every single year and then hoping, I would say it has hurt from the standpoint. There have been some probably fringe fans that are like, yeah, I'm not, you know what? I don't even remember who the quarterback is at, this school or how long they've been there, where they came from. I'm not even going to pay attention anymore. There's no link to that player and my school, so I'm not going to bother listening. So hopefully they listen to us and kind of have a kumbaya group meeting and figure something out that does all those things.
The good news is, and probably the reason why nothing has changed yet, is because the name on the front of the jersey absolutely means more than the name on the back to the fans. And it has not had an impact on any sort of consumption of the sport, whether it's listening to this channel, it's listening on the radio, it's watching on television. The consumption level of college football is as high as it gets. And I think it needs to change regardless of how high the ratings are. But the good news is people still care about the actual teams, and they care about the games far more than all the stuff we just considered. But I know that they would like to see some change there, and we'll see if we get it. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so we'll take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll see for the race to the best steakhouse somewhere in North America what happens this year with Torretta and Zarzour's picks on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Time to make some picks. If Torretta and I are in the same place this year, he already owes me a dinner for last year. And now we move on to 2025.
I thought that was breakfast. Wasn't breakfast you, me, and Betsy? Didn't that cover us from last year on your trip?
Oh yeah, that brunch we had in Miami. Yeah, okay.
Hey, you picked a cheaper restaurant. You let me off the hook.
Fair enough. All right, we move on to 2025. Thursday game. This is already underway. We haven't looked at the score, though. Number 25, Boise State at South Florida. ESPN. Boise's a 5.5-point favorite. I'm taking the Broncos down in Tampa.
I'll go home. South Florida.
All right, you're going with the Bulls there. Okay. Let's go next to Nebraska at Cincinnati. This is a 9 o'clock start, and that's a Thursday game. 9 o'clock start, also ESPN. Huskers favored by 6.5 on the road at Cincy. Give me another road team. I'm going Matt Rule on the road.
I would agree with you. I think that Raiola is improved, continues to improve. New OC in our guy, so I would take Nebraska as well.
All right, let's move on to the Friday games. The Auburn Tigers at 8 o'clock tomorrow night on Fox play the Baylor Bears. Auburn is a slight favorite at Baylor. I'm riding with road teams to start the year. Give me Auburn.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I'm going home. I think Aranda. I think he's going to have a breakout year. I'm going Baylor at home this one.
Okay. Next we have Georgia Tech at Colorado and Coach Prime. The Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech, a 4.5-point favorite on the road. I'm going the Jackets.
Wow, you're going road favorites all the way. You know what? I'm going to go Georgia Tech too. I like Haynes King. You know what? Wanky's a QB coach, my buddy up there. I like how Georgia Tech has steadily improved.
Yeah, me too. All right, we got to run through these. Texas at Ohio State. Everybody's been talking about the game, Gino. This is one of the best Week 1 matchups I've ever seen. I'm going Buckeyes, though. I'm going Buckeyes at home against Texas.
I'm going road team Texas. Ohio State lost 16 draft picks last year. They do not reload that fast.
Tennessee will beat Syracuse in Atlanta. You agree?
All right, I'll give you that one.
Yeah, okay. That's a noon start. Alabama will beat Florida State in Tallahassee. I think it's against the rules for you to pick Florida State.
How many points do I get? I'll take the number and
No. We're picking straight up.
Agree. Okay, straight up. I'll take Alabama. Yeah.
LSU does not win these games in week 1. They play Clemson in South Carolina, not in Louisiana. I'm taking LSU though as the underdog on the road.
Man, had for sure you taking Clemson. I'm taking LSU on the road as well. I think Nussmeier is one of the best in the business, and if he's going to have a Heisman type campaign, it's got to start week 1.
Beamer Bowl. Give me Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks to beat the Hokies on Sunday.
And their outside shot looking at the playoffs. They won into the playoffs this year. I would agree, South Carolina.
And the last game, Gino does pick games he calls. Notre Dame at Miami on Sunday night down there in what is now called Hard Rock Stadium. I am taking Carson Beck and the Canes.
I'm taking Carson Beck and the Canes because the global warming effect is truly in effect, and it's going to be probably 95 degrees and high humidity. And the last time Notre Dame came down here against Miami, they were favored as well and got absolutely destroyed in the stadium. So I'm going to take Miami.
By the way, do you know what the low is on Saturday in Lexington, Kentucky? 52 is the low when we wake up on Saturday morning in Lexington. It's going to feel like football in a lot of places. Evidently not where Gino Torretta lives. Down in Miami.
I'll screenshot you the heat index middle of the day at 120. No, it's not like that here.
Well, it's great to be back with you, my friend. I look forward to another season of this on Touchdown Radio Tailgate.
Awesome. Sounds good, T.
Okay, that's week 1 for you. We'll be back next week with week number 2, and we look forward to doing this each and every week here on SiriusXM Channel 84. He's the 1992 Heisman Trophy winner. He's Gino Torretta. I'm Taylor Zarzour. You've been listening to Touchdown Radio Tailgate on SiriusXM Channel 84.